Hearing to live stream. So, stream.
Good evening, Doc.
Good evening. We are already live on YouTube.
Might want to turn that off. Can you change the name on this? Good evening, Dr. Hibbert and Sister Nellian.
Hi.
We are live on YouTube. Okay, guys, we are live on YouTube now. People are joining. So welcome everybody who is joining on YouTube. We will be beginning in a few moments. Just stand by. Already live on YouTube.
Change the name on this.
Okay, we're waiting for a few more people to join and then we will go live. Well, then we will begin. Okay, Sister Nellian. So we have a few people in the room. Waiting on a few more to join. I'm gonna remind a few about our meeting and then we can begin.
Okay.
So stand by to begin in about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay, Sister Nelian, you can begin now.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great day, great evening for us to come together again to have our seminar. And so this evening we are coming live from YouTube. And so for our seminar series this evening, we have 3 presenters, and the overarching theme for this evening is immune health. Immune health. So we have 3 presenters, and our presenters are Dr. Shanique Hibbert, Dr. Orlando Thomas, and Dr. Jermaine Nicholas. Now I shall be introducing them in a few, but I believe that before we begin, that we should pray. So let us bow our heads as we pray. Holy Father, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we come. We thank you, Lord, for your goodness and your mercies towards us. We thank you for how you have fearfully and wonderfully made us. And Lord, we thank you for the immune system that you have placed in us when you created us, so that we can be healthy and happy. And so we thank you so much for the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you have given us, and in particular, your 2 sons and daughter this evening, and they will be sharing with us the importance of immune health. And so, Lord, we thank you and we praise your name. For Christ's sake, we pray. Amen. And so here we are. So as I said before, we have 3 presentations for this evening. And our first presenter will be Dr. Shanique Hibbert. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Shanique Hibbert. She's a medical doctor, and she's currently working at the Thomas Medical Center. She's a passionate caregiver, and she really does a very good job, and she's not very partial. Anyone who she comes in contact with, she is so very much willing to really share and care for that person. Even before she pursued her MBBS at the University of the West Indies Mona campus, she engaged in the field from other avenues. While doing so, she acquired a MSc in Occupational and Environmental Health and Safety and a BSc in Experimental Biology from the same university. The necessary tools to thrive in her area of expertise were instilled in her from her days at Arden High School and Dunrobin Primary School. When she is able to draw herself from tending to her patients, she may be found serving her church through the music ministry, maintaining her health in fitness classes, and tending to her beautiful home and her husband. Our second presenter for this evening is Dr. Orlando Thomas. Dr. Thomas, he's a full-time integrative family medical practitioner at the Thomas Medical Center, Old Harbour, since 2006. He holds many hats. He's a medical doctor, as we all know. He's the member of the Medical Association of Jamaica. He's a full-time integrative family medical practitioner. And he did functional medicine in the USA, and he's the first doctor in Jamaica to receive this certification. He's a shockwave therapy clinician. He's an elder at the Bendon SDA Church since 2010. He has conducted over 100 health seminars island-wide and for audience also in the US. He has spoken on various radio and television shows in the area of health, including TVJ, CVM, NCU FM, and Love FM. He's a motivational speaker to thousands of young people in St. Catherine and also in Kingston. He's married to Denise, and the union has produced 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And our third presenter for this evening, he is Dr. Jermaine Nicholas. He is a board-certified doctor of naturopathy. He is the director of the Nutriverse Natural Wellness Center in Philadelphia, and he specializes in non-invasive, drugless, alternative, and complementary health care, including detox, cleansing protocols, nutrient and herbal therapy for acute and chronic conditions, brain-based wellness using nutrition and light and sound therapy, proven effective for stress, anxiety and depression, sleep disorders, memory and learning, weight loss program, and so much more. He is a member of the following associations: the American Naturopathic Medical Association. He is also a member of the Society of Complementary, Alternative, and Holistic Practitioners. And he's also a board-certified naturopathic doctor. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, indeed, we have some very germane and august members of the medical fraternity, and they are here to speak with us. And so, without further ado, I will now invite Dr. Shanique Hibbert to speak on immunity and infectious diseases.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Mrs. Hutton Rose. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. And this evening, we will begin our presentations by talking about the BDF, immunity and infectious diseases. Just one moment, so let me share my screen. Not able to share screen right now, Dr. Thomas. It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
Go ahead now.
All right, there we go. Okay, are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Clearly.
Yes, seen it, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Go to full
excellent.
screen.
We just need to start from the beginning, go to slideshow and start from the beginning. It will probably help. There you go.
All right, excellent. You're able to see it?
Yes, seeing you well, Dr.
Okay, all
Hilbert.
right,
Go right ahead.
wonderful.
Right.
All right, so as I said, good evening again, everyone. We will begin our presentations by talking about the BDF, immunity and infectious diseases. So we are going to do just two things today. We are going to talk about the overview, or give an overview rather, of the immune system. And then we are going to move into talking about things that we can do to boost our immune health. All right, so despite us being surrounded by a lot of harmful organisms and toxins, and even the threat of our own cells turning into tumor or harmful cells, our bodies still manage to survive. How? How do they do that? It's through our immune system. And Mrs. Hutton Rose quoted a very popular verse, and one that I love, in Psalm 139, verses 13 to 14. It said, "You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it." And at the end of this presentation, I hope and expect that all of us will be saying that when we understand and can appreciate how the immune system really works, how it comes together to achieve health and to prevent death, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I hope you will join the psalmist David in saying that too, that it is wonderfully complex and God's workmanship is marvelous. So let's talk about the immune system. What is the immune system? It is the body's natural defense against disease-causing agents, for example, bacteria, viruses, and parasites. It is a complex and vital network of cells and organs that protect our bodies from infectious diseases. And it's centered around the lymphoid system, or the lymphatic system, that we'll mention a little later. It also promotes defense against infective agents and thereby preventing disease. So essentially, what the immune system is the body's defense force, or the BDF. I know some persons were probably wondering from the title, what is BDF? It is the body's defense force. So similar to the JDF, where soldiers are deployed to patrol and detect and respond to enemy threats, so is the BDF, the body's defense force. And if you have ever been to a zone of special operations checkpoint, as is in this picture, then you may have been asked questions. Some persons had their cars searched, and pretty much everyone was screened to determine their level of threat by our officers. And that is exactly what the body's defense force does. It screens to determine the level of threat. It does this with external threats. So our body's defense force operates like our Coast Guard. It protects our borders from external threats, and it mounts a defense against aggressors. But not only external threats and things that want to come from outside to inside to harm us, but internal threats as well. Our body's defense force, like our JDF, has to screen each cell to ensure that they won't create any problems. And it also has to respond to the cells that are threatening to the body. And those internal threats can lead to things like cancers and autoimmune diseases. And that will be spoken about more in depth by Dr. Thomas and Dr. Nicholas in their presentations. So we move on to the cells and the organs involved. These make up our lymphatic system or lymphoid. There are primary and secondary organs that are involved. They range from the tonsils or the adenoids at the back of the throat, the thymus, the spleen, Peyer's patch, which is pretty much the gut's defense. You can consider them or liken them to lymph nodes of the gut, the bone marrow, the appendix, and of course our lymph nodes found in our neck or arms or groin and other areas. In Jamaica, we call lymph nodes wax and cannon. So that's what our lymph nodes are. In terms of the functions of our immune system, it seeks to do four things. Number one, it wants to identify the threat. Number two, it wants to mount an attack. Number three, to eliminate the pathogen or the threat or the germ. And number four, it wants to remember how it did that, so that the next time it encounters that same pathogen or that same germ, that it can mount a defense against it and eliminate it. There are two functional divisions in the immune system. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, exactly how it functions. So the immune response is separated into innate or natural and acquired or adaptive. The innate or natural immunity is non-specific and it is our first line of defense. So it doesn't require you to have any previous exposure to any kind of infective agent or germ. And that response of the innate or the natural immunity is fast. It takes place in minutes to hours. The other is the acquired or adaptive immunity. This one is specific and it is the second line of defense and takes place after exposure to the infective agent. And this response is a little bit slower. It takes days instead of the minutes to hours that the innate or the natural immunity takes place. So we are going to talk a little bit more, as I said, about the innate immunity. So it uses three different characteristics in order to allow for that immunity: physical barriers, chemical barriers, and cellular defenses. So we'll come back to the adaptive immunity, the right side of the screen, in a little while. But for now, we're going to focus on the innate immunity. So with the physical and the chemical barriers, those are our skin, our mucous membranes, cilia, in the nose, in the gut, body temperature, which is why we get a fever when we're mounting an immune response, and even the pH of our blood. Those are physical and chemical barriers that serve to protect us or prevent pathogens or threats from entering our body. However, when those are broken, when the pathogen or the threat enters into the body, then the soldiers rather of our innate or natural immunity, those are activated. I'm not going to spend too long on this, but I'm just going to run through just so we can have an appreciation of what the different soldiers do. So just like in JDF, where you have different soldiers with different ranks and they do different things, it's the same thing with the BDF, different soldiers. So we're going to start at the top where the neutrophils are. Those can be considered our first responders. They come quick, right? They're first on the scene. Once they are activated or once they're summoned, then they come very quickly and they seek to eliminate the threat or the pathogen or the germ. The eosinophils and the basophils, those are the cells or the soldiers that are abundant in allergic reactions, and those are the ones who release histamine and causes an inflammatory response, a further inflammatory response. The macrophages now are really, really important soldiers. They are the patrol officers. They are the ones who just patrol the body, ensure that all is well, ensure that there's no threats trying to get in or no threat present. They are the ones who also bridge the gap between the innate or the natural immunity that we're talking about and the adaptive or the acquired immunity, which we'll focus on a little bit later. The mast cells, those you can think of as your recruiters, your recruiting soldiers. So they call all the other cells, the macrophages do that as well, by the way, but the mast cells, they summon other cells or other soldiers to help to participate in this war, to eliminate the germ or the threat. Dendritic cells as well are very, very important too. They are the ones, or they're the soldiers that also help to bridge the gap or activate the adaptive immunity after the innate or the natural response. They are the ones that present what we call a signature. So each time there is a germ, each time a germ enters your body, it carries what you can say is a particular scent. It carries a particular signature. And then those dendritic cells identify that signature. They try to eliminate them. They identify that signature. And then they present them to the other cells that are a part of the adaptive immunity. So they are really, really important for basically tagging so that the other cells can know that this is what I'm looking for, this is what I need to kill. And the natural killer cells, finally, they do just that. They kill threats or they kill cells that need to be eliminated. So from that, the innate or the natural immunity will accomplish three things. It will, number one, the patrol officers rather, or the soldiers, which are the macrophages, those will identify the foreign cells and they will eliminate, and they will also call other soldiers, call other cells to the location to fight. Number two, the other soldiers or the other cells will eliminate by consuming the foreign cells or the threat. And number three, adaptive immunity, which is what we're going to talk about next, will be activated. So adaptive immunity, in a nutshell, pretty much, we're going to start from where the macrophage grabs the germ that is on the left side of the screen. So it grabs the germ, it shows the germ to the T cells, or the cytotoxic T cells. Those are the ones that are going to kill the germs. And then they're going to do just that, kill it. But not only do they show it to the cells that want to kill the germ, but it also shows the signature to the helper T cells. And those are the ones that will show it to the B cells. And the B cells are important because they make antibodies. And antibodies are very important in our immune system because the antibodies will mark the germ or the threat so that it can be killed. So in a nutshell, that is the adaptive immune system and the innate immune system, innate immunity. For adaptive immunity, there are two different types. There is active immunity and there is passive immunity. Active immunity comes about by natural means. So you get a flu, you contract a cold, dengue, whatever it is, whatever virus or bacteria it is, and also by vaccination. Passive immunity can come about maternally, where mommy breastfeeds baby and she passes on antibodies through the breast milk, and also through artificial means where we inject antibodies into your body. And this adaptive immunity is the principle on which vaccines or immunization works. So I'm going to talk a little bit about vaccines. So a vaccine introduces an inactivated or a weakened form of the virus or of the bacteria into the body. The adaptive immune response then produces the antibodies to defend against that virus or bacteria, so that when the real deal comes, or when the real and active virus or bacteria enters the body, it is recognized because it remembers it. And then the specific antibody that was made previously can be released to eliminate it. So in Jamaica, we have our vaccine schedule. So for example, a child gets vaccinated for measles, mumps, and rubella, MMR. It is a weakened form of the virus, and we are able to mount a defense against it, so that if we ever do come into contact with the real measles, the real mumps, the real rubella, then we'll be able to, as this says, mount a defense against it. We'll be able to eliminate it without getting sick or without it overwhelming our immune system and causing death. So when a new pathogen or disease enters our body, it introduces a new, what we call the antigen. For every new antigen, our body has to build the specific antibody, and then that can grab onto the antigen and defeat the pathogen. So this slide pretty much just gives us a side-by-side comparison of the innate on the right side and the adaptive on the left side immunity, and gives a breakdown of the differences and the different cells that are involved in the both of them, as we had gone through. So now that we have an idea of how our immune system works and the kind of soldiers that are involved, how can we boost our immune system? I present to you 7 ways in which you can boost your immune system or help your immune system, help our immune system to perform optimally. And firstly, we're going to start with eating anti-inflammatory foods. So eating the foods like fruits, especially those high in vitamin C, your pear or avocado, your berries, blueberries, etc. Your green leafy vegetables, your omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in your fish, your salmon, your tuna, your ginger, turmeric, and nuts. Those are the foods that will fight inflammation in the body. There is also evidence of dark chocolate being anti-inflammatory. It does have antioxidants, and there is, of course, research to support it, but I would recommend that sparingly, and I would recommend that we go with all of these other foods that are named. So, along with eating our anti-inflammatory foods, that then leads us to avoiding foods that cause inflammation. And unfortunately, these foods are the ones that are very tasty and accessible and mass-produced. However, they cause significant damage. They cause inflammation to our guts and in other parts of our body. So foods such as your red meats, your steak, hamburgers, your processed meats such as your bologna, your bacon, your sausage, frankfurters, your commercial baked goods, the snack cakes, cookies, brownies, your bread and pasta made from white flour, your deep fried foods such as fries, fried chicken, and donuts, your foods high in added sugar such as candy, jellies, syrups, your sugar sweetened juices such as soda, bottled or canned teas and sports drink, and your trans fats, which are found in your margarine. So those are some of the foods that we want to avoid. They are actually akin to toxins. So we definitely want to avoid those that cause inflammation and get more of or eat more of the ones that fight inflammation. Number 2, repairing your gut health or your microbiome. Gut health is really, really important. It is said that 70% of the immune system lives in the gut. So it's really, really important that we maintain a healthy microbiome and avoid dysbiosis. And dysbiosis just means that there is an imbalance in the good germs and the bad germs inside the gut. And that imbalance can lead to things such as diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, colon cancer, and even mental disorders like depression and anxiety disorders. So we want to create that balance. We want to repair that leaky gut. And we can do so through a number of means. Firstly, prebiotics. Those are food that enhance the healthy bacteria or the healthy germs in our gut, and that is found in fiber-rich foods. And I mentioned the fiber-rich foods earlier, so your nuts, your legumes, your fruits, your vegetables, among others. And also probiotics, really, really important for gut health. Your probiotics can be found in your yogurts, unsweetened, your olives, your apple cider vinegar, and there are some cereals that have probiotics as well. If not in foods, then you can supplement probiotics. And Dr. Mercola, as well as Garden of Life, those are two really good brands that I recommend for probiotics. Number 3 is to manage your stress. And we can do this through a number of ways. So through modifiable or modifying our lifestyle habits. And that looks like choosing better foods, choosing to eat better foods. It looks like stopping the smoking. It looks like decreasing your alcohol intake and choosing to carve out time to exercise. It also looks like your self-care habits, going to the spa, getting a massage, listening to uplifting music, and so on. Managing stress can also be done through meditation. And interestingly, meditation has the same root word as medicine, which means a thoughtful act to create order. So at points in your day, you can take some time, especially in the mornings, you can take some time to just center yourself, to practice your deep breathing exercises and to get that meditation going. You can also practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the act of living in the present moment. And what that looks like is, for example, you are sitting around your table in the morning or drinking your tea. Mindfulness would be focusing on the taste of the tea, the good taste of the tea. It would be listening to the birds outside, listening to whoever, or acknowledging that someone inside your house may be talking, your husband, your children, you can hear their voices. Focusing on the warmth that the tea brings you, focusing on the fact that you are sitting down in a comfortable chair and that you are grateful for it. So mindfulness is being present in the moment and choosing to be grateful for that moment. Managing stress is also prioritizing your mental health. And for some persons, that may look like seeking additional help. Now, it's stigmatized, not just in Jamaica, all over the world, that counseling is for mad people. Counseling is, if you're going off. But research has shown, and in my professional and personal life, I have seen counseling do wonders. So if you need it, if you are at a place where you are not sure how to manage this stress, if you are at a place where you really do think that you need additional help, seek the help. Number 4 is sleep. During sleep, your body produces proteins, which are called cytokines, that fight inflammation and infection. When you are exposed to infectious pathogens, have inflammation, or you experience chronic stress, your body increases production of those cytokines to offset illness. So sleep deprivation hinders that immune response. And research continues to show that prolonged sleep deficiency may lead to chronic, systemic, low-grade inflammation and may be associated with some autoimmune diseases like osteoarthritis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, etc. So it is recommended that you get a minimum of 6 hours of sleep per night. And number 5 is fasting. So a number of studies have shown that different forms and lengths of fasting impact distinct immune responses, cells, and pathways. And they have done clinical trials. And one in particular, they did a small clinical trial and it found that after 72 hours of water-only fasting, there was decrease in inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. So fasting is actually good and fasting boosts our immune health. So try that water fast for improved gut health. Number 6 is exercise. Exercise increases blood and lymph flow as your muscles contract, and so it increases the circulation of the immune cells, making them roam the body, not only at a higher rate, but in higher numbers. So they have done studies, and there's a particular study where they looked at acute exercise, meaning moderate to vigorous intensity, lasting less than an hour. And they found that this boosted or this improved the immune response. So I encourage you, go for a walk, go for a run, 45 minutes per day, 4 times for the week, and see it boost your or improve your immune health. And finally, last but not least, hydration. So water is good for so many things. Water is one of those things that we love, that the body loves. And dehydration has been found to decrease the salivary rate and decrease the concentration of the salivary immunoglobulins, the IgA, which is one of the first lines of defense of the immune function on foreign bacteria. Water flushes out toxins out of your body. Water is involved in many biochemical processes in your body. So hydrate. I can't stress it enough. And coconut water is good as well. Coconut water gives you your electrolytes. Coconut water is good as well. One of the things that I find with water is that a lot of us think that we are drinking more water than we actually are. So a good rule of thumb is to have 1 ounce per kilogram per day of water. And you can use this table that I have on the right side to gauge how much water you should be drinking per day. So if you are at 160 pounds, then you should be drinking 10 8-ounce glasses of water per day in order to effectively boost your immune system. So in summary, the body's defense force, or BDF, is the body's natural defense against disease-causing agents. The immune response is divided into the natural or innate immunity and the acquired or adaptive immunity. And 7 ways to boost the immune system are to eat anti-inflammatory foods, repair your leaky gut with prebiotics and probiotics, manage your stress levels, sleep adequately, fast, exercise, and hydrate.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hubert. Thank you so much. There's a lot of information. And as I look in the chat, I realize that, okay, at this particular moment, we're 106 persons on YouTube. I'm going to really invite folks to really send out, share the link, send the link out, share the link, because it's really good information we have here. as I scroll through, then I'm seeing somebody says that BDF, oh, they really like that. And then Geraldine Martin Chen said, we appreciate this. Hazel O'Connor, interesting information. Leah Vanessa Jones, very informative. Thank you, Dr. Hibbert. Heather Christian, she's saying lots of info. Joan Williams, great information, free of cost. What a blessing. I appreciate this so much. Okay. And then Marlene Bowler says, good night, everyone. Doctors, this is very educational and interested. I love this. Lisa Rodney says, great information. And Damian Scarlett, thanks for the presentation, Dr. Hibbert. Okay, so those are some of the comments on YouTube. All right, so at this time, I'm going to invite Dr. Thomas to do his presentation. Over to you, Doc.
Good night, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here again to share this very valuable information. The topic tonight is reversing autoimmune diseases. And this, for those who know what autoimmune diseases are, will seem like a very audacious topic. Before I get into it, this is just an outline of what we'll be talking about this evening. And, a quotation from the 1st century says, the knowledge of anything, since all things have a cause, is not acquired or complete unless it is known by causes. Therefore, in medicine, we ought to know the cause of sickness and health. And so this evening, we're going to be starting here to try to understand the root cause of autoimmune diseases, because when we do, we can then begin to look at cures and reversals, because we are taught in medicine that certain diseases, we don't know the causes and they are chronic, and once you get them, it's genetic and it's probably just bad luck, and you're destined to have them for life. But experience has taught me that this is not always true. There are many diseases that we consider irreversible and lifelong that are in fact curable and reversible. And I have been a witness to this over and over again. And so the idea that certain diseases are off limits to getting rid of them is something that I have long thrown off. I no longer have that kind of belief system, despite the evidence that might be presented, because I have seen these things reversed over and over again. Hippocrates in the 1st century BC says all disease begin in the gut. And back then, this statement wasn't fully appreciated. People didn't truly understand what it means. He apparently did, but as the centuries have passed and as the research has come out, we are now beginning to appreciate that a significant amount of diseases that we experience, that we consider incurable, have their genesis and their root in malfunctions in our intestines, and understanding these malfunctions and trying to correct them is going to be the gateway to begin healing. Now, let us begin our journey by answering the question, what is an autoimmune disease? Auto, as you know, means self, and autoimmune, and immune means immune system. So autoimmune diseases mean a disease where, or a set of diseases where the immune system destroys the body's own cells and organs, which, as Dr. Hibbert just eloquently put, your BDF is supposed to protect your body from invading germs and other threats. So in an autoimmune disease, the immune system begins to do the opposite of what it has been designed to do, begin to destroy the body's own cells. And based on what cells are destroyed and what organs and tissues are destroyed, we then come up with different names for these diseases. And we're going to be looking at a few of these. Autoimmune diseases number over 100 now, and every year we are adding new ones to the list as our understanding of disease causation begins to expand. So let's take it organ by organ. There are a number of autoimmune diseases that affect the brain, and among them are commonly known multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is typically a viral-related illness, and newly added to the list now, we're understanding that autism also has an autoimmune link, and they are in fact immune system components damaging the brain in the children who are autistic. In the blood, there are various leukemias and erythrocytomas and dysglycemias, and even low platelet disorders that we know are immune system related. In the intestinal tract, we have diseases like celiac disease, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and diabetes type 1, which are all autoimmune diseases where the body's defense system, the immune system, begins to attack the body's own cells and destroy them in the various areas. In the nervous system, peripherally, we have peripheral neuropathy, which we commonly link to diabetes, which we know now can also be autoimmune, and diabetic neuropathy itself is also classified as an autoimmune disease based on the pattern of inflammation and antibody levels that we see in these patients. In the lungs, we have diseases like fibromyalgia and granulomatosis, which we know are autoimmune. Skin diseases, we can commonly refer to psoriasis, which is pretty common, vitiligo, which is where persons begin to lose the pigmentation, so you have these white spots on the skin. This is considered a disease that is pretty much unable to be treated, but it is in fact an autoimmune disease. Eczema, which we classify as, atopic dermatitis, part of the atopic group of conditions, which includes asthma, sinusitis or allergic rhinitis, and eye allergies. Eczema also can affect the scalp, seborrheic dermatitis. These are all autoimmune conditions where the immune system begins to damage different parts of the body, and depending on where it's damaged, we give it a name. Scleroderma is another not so common one, but I have a few patients who have been diagnosed with scleroderma where the muscles and joints and bones are concerned. We have what we know as rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and other conditions that may affect adults and children. Very commonly in our day, we have thyroid problems, which the research shows that maybe 1/5 of women have thyroid problems. So 20% of women on the call now have a thyroid problem, half of whom have no idea they have them, and those who know are not adequately treated. It generally is very subtle, most of these, but thyroid problems in particular may come with just general malaise and weakness. You feel cold, maybe impaired, maybe thinning, and you're just not feeling well. And these may be the only symptoms. So to diagnose these conditions is typically very difficult because they are generally very subtle. There's a very common omission. There's a very obvious omission here from the list, which is lupus, which is another common autoimmune condition. And there are many others. There's a list that I have on the other page here, which shows alopecia of the hair. Loss of hair is an autoimmune condition. Autoimmune hemolytic anemia, autoimmune hepatitis, Behçet's disease, which I have a couple of patients with that condition too. There are a number of others here, which is called discoid lupus, immune thrombocytopenia, which I referred to initially as having a low platelet count, and lichen sclerosis, difficult to diagnose again, but is a very unique skin condition. Myasthenia gravis, which is again damage to certain aspects of the muscular system. We have polymyositis, which is inflammation of the muscles. There is a whole list of autoimmune condition, which I said number over 100 now, which really fall into one broad category where the immune system is no longer protecting the body cells, but is now attacking the body cells. So we're going to be trying to dive into now and understand exactly what's going on and why is it that we consider diseases reversible when we have been told traditionally, and I was taught that these are chronic conditions that you have for life. Why is it that I've been able to see patients who had rheumatoid arthritis? And I'll give you a couple stories just now, just to kind of underline the point that I'm making. So one of my first experiences with an autoimmune patient that I saw reversal in was maybe 8 years ago, when I just started to think about and to learn about functional medicine. So this was a 45-year-old patient who was visiting Jamaica from Canada. She came to me because someone of her friends told her that Dr. Thomas is a doctor that might be able to help you. He believes in natural stuff. Go and check him. So she came to me quite skeptical. She was in fact suffering though. She had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and had been put on a number of medications. So she was in fact on steroid prednisone. She was on Plaquenil. She was on HCQS. She was on prednisone. She was on diclofenac for pain. She was on omeprazole to protect her stomach. And she had been still feeling pain despite this list of medication. With the little I knew at the time, I told her to change her diet. So I took her off gluten, which is wheat product, took her off dairy, took her off sugar, gave her a few probiotics, gave her some fish oil and vitamin D because she was from Canada. So I figured she might be low in vitamin D. I didn't do any tests because she was going back to Canada. In 2 weeks, the lady called me and said, boy, doc, I'm not feeling any pain. I'm still on the medication. I want to stop taking some of them. What do you think? So I said, okay, let's try. And she came off the medications one by one. 3 months later, she was off all the medication. She was in no pain at all. And this has been about 6 to 8 years ago. She's now in Jamaica and she's still medication free. And she is having no pain, no progress in her illness, because for her, I found exactly what was causing her problem and took her off of those foods. Another patient I can remember is at the time she was about 38, married with one child, who was a principal of a school. She came to me having gone to the hospitals in Jamaica and was put on a number of medications, including prednisone, HCQS, pain medications. A whole bunch of medications were put, and she was still in pain. She reached a point where she could not walk. Her joints were swollen. She was very weak. And being an Adventist as she was, she decided, boy, I don't really want to take these medications. I wanna just come off the medications. And she came off the medications and she was worse. She became housebound. And so she came to me in that condition, and I did the same thing for her, this time having a little more knowledge now about functional medicine. I changed up her diet completely. She was in fact vegetarian, but she was having a lot of wheat and flour products and so on in her diet. So I took her off all the wheat products that she was on. She was already off dairy, so I took her off peanuts and a few other nuts. I took her off corn. I took her off soy, which she actually loves soy. So I took her off soy completely. I gave her probiotics. I gave her turmeric and ginger as teas and supplements. I gave her omega-3 fish oil in 3 grams a day supplements. I gave her vitamin D. And this was maybe about July. And within a month, this lady was back at work having no pain. December came and she had a piece of Christmas cake and her pains came back. And so she promptly came off. And today she is totally pain-free. I can remember a child, a parent brought to me who had been having various problems with atopy. Child had eczemas on the skin, itching all over. Child had been snoring at night because of enlarged tons and adenoids. Scalp was full of dandruff and so on. The child had asthma and was wheezing and was on steroid medication and was on Ventolin. Child was using various kinds of creams on the skin and was even using oral steroids for the asthma. And the mother was in and out of the hospital for wheezing episodes and getting nebulization. Child was on multiple antibiotics for ear infections and throat infections and chest infections. And the child mother came to me and asked, Doc, can you help? You know, is there something that we can do to assist my child? Because she's on so much medication and I'm so, worried about her. So long story short, I said, Mommy, I'm not sure. These are very serious illnesses, but here's what we can do. We can change the child's diet. So I took the child off most of the snacks, had the child on snacking on fruits, the child off dairy products and wheat products, had the child eating regular food from the family pot, and the child up her egg and And I started having the child have organ meats like liver and so on to boost the nutrition. I was a very picky eater. And so it was difficult. I had the child go on smoothies. And then I gave the child Kids Omega-3, and I made the Dr. T's penicillin, which you'll look out for that video this week. That video is coming out this week, guys, with the Dr. T's penicillin. For you who haven't seen it yet, you'll meet it this week with the turmeric and ginger and garlic and onion. The child is now 4 years in the future from that date, and this child, after about a month, had stopped getting all those infections, had stopped wheezing, was on their controller pump, and the eczema had basically stopped flaring. After about 3 months, there was no need for the ventilator, for the controller medication anymore, because I had to taper that down. I couldn't take chances of just dropping them off that completely. And this child maybe have had one asthma attack in the last 4 or 5 years. And I have many examples of people who have totally been better with chronic conditions that needed treatment long-term, having changed their diet, supplemented in what they were lacking, and their bodies just began to heal. And there is a basis for this. This is excerpts from a paper by Dr. Fasano. He is founder for Celiac Research Center, Massachusetts General Hospital. He researched celiac disease, which is a condition that affects maybe 1% of white population in America, and maybe a little more from his native Italian population. And so he was uniquely interested in celiac disease. And so he discovered for celiac disease that there were 3 things that were necessary. And by extension, he used this as a model to predict and then go on to confirm that this was in fact what was happening in autoimmune diseases. There were in fact 3 things at play. And if you understood what was at play and you address these things, you can begin to see disease reversal. Now, I must put in a disclaimer that autoimmune disease are chronic and progressive, and there are some patients who come so late with tissue damage and organ damage that it is difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. But that's not the majority of patients. The majority of patients do not need to live on steroids and pain medication to take their immune system out of commission in an attempt to try to get them to a livable condition. That is not necessary for most patients. And if people begin to understand this, then more people will begin to heal. So the 3 things that Dr. Fasano postulated were at play were: 1, a genetic susceptibility. He postulated that you need to have a genetic predisposition to autoimmune disease for you to get it. And that has proven true in almost every single case of autoimmune disease. There's found to be triggers from the environment, which you'll find out in a minute, which may be food or toxins or bacteria, so on. And then there's going to be a need for you to have increased intestinal permeability, and that we call leaky gut syndrome. And the medical fraternity was in denial about leaky gut syndrome for centuries. People would say that this doesn't exist, and people still do say that leaky gut doesn't exist. But we know the research is profoundly confirmed that this in fact exists, and this is at the heart of what causes autoimmunity. And so we're going to dive into each one now, and as we pick each one apart, we'll begin to understand where are the points of intervention where we can now begin to heal people from autoimmune disease. So pay attention carefully, especially those of you who have an autoimmune disease. Now, this is the same thing in a different format. So we've tried to look at the 3 components of autoimmunity causation as a stool, 3 legs of a stool: genetic setup, exposure to environmental triggers, and leaky gut syndrome. Now we're going to look at genetics first and foremost. So the genetics of autoimmunity varies from condition to condition and from person to person. In celiac disease specifically, we found HLA, DQ, and DQ8, DQ2 and DQ8 proteins, that these would present fragments of undigested gluten to the immune system, and would then cause destruction of the intestinal lining, and thus affect a whole host of different things in the body. For different conditions in autoimmunity, we find these same HLA proteins and different genetic abnormalities that cause your body to react in an abnormal way to what might be a harmless or sometimes harmful external stimuli. And gluten is probably fingered in most cases of autoimmunity, not all. Genetics is what we're going to dive into now. So we know that the genetic makeup that you're born with is not your destiny. Because you inherited a gene does not mean that you necessarily must get the condition. A phrase I like to use is that genetics load the gun, but environment pull the trigger. So there is this interaction between your genetics and the environment. We know this from our study of epigenetics, that the gene doesn't just get expressed, they get expressed as they're activated and triggered. And there are things outside of you that may trigger off bad genes, and things inside of you and vitamins that may turn on good genes. And to the extent that you're exposed, you may trigger off good and bad genes. So we know that chemicals in your environment, and these might include toxins and chemical preservatives and various foods that you may interact with, may trigger off changes in your immune, in your genetic expression. We know that physical activity and how your body structure is laid out is going to be important. We know that environmental stimuli, emotional stimuli and spiritual stimuli are going to be important. So for example, say you are depressed and down, you might not feel the need to exercise, for example. And so you might, as a man, because you're not exercising, have low testosterone. And low testosterone is going to influence how your genes are expressed in a number of ways, and that may predispose you to various cancers. In women, the same thing. We know that one woman with menopause and the estrogens go down, that predisposes them to cardiovascular disease, because estrogen provides protection. Estrogen is a steroid hormone, and steroid hormones actually can enter your cells and interact with your genes to determine which genes are expressed and not expressed. That's how steroid hormones work. And so we know what you do, what you eat does influence gene expression. And Dr. Hibbert mentioned in her talk about meditation and spirituality and so on. And we know now from research that meditation can influence your gene expression. Being in a calm, relaxed state can determine that genes that are bad, cancer-causing genes, are turned off, while the opposite, such as being stressed, can cause you to turn on bad genes. So we know, for example, that when you're stressed, you release cortisol, which is a steroid hormone, which interacts with your DNA, and it behaves in a way to turn on bad genes to make your blood sugar go up. Yes, right? So cortisol will interact with your genes to improve your blood sugar for you to deal with stress. But if it's chronic, it's going to give you diabetes, and this increases your risk of many cancers, for example. So we know that there are various things. We know that as sugar goes up and cortisol goes up, this increases your intestinal permeability and increases your risk of autoimmunity. So everything in your body is linked. Every thought you have can change how your immune system reacts. So we have to now be intentional about our mental faculties, our emotional state, our physical body and our movement, and what we put into our body. Every morsel of food that you put in is information. There are instructions for your DNA. So let me repeat this in a nice way. Food is information. Food is not just calories. Food tells your body what to do, how to behave, what proteins to make, what programs to run, what pathways to turn off or turn on, and the lack of nutrients will cause many important pathways to shut down because the nutrients just aren't there. Get a little deeper into this. I don't want to spend the whole day because I really could. This is a quote from the textbook of medical physiology, Guyton. Every medical student would have used this book, and Guyton says each 100 trillion cells in the human body is a living structure that can survive indefinitely. Yeah, Guyton said that. In most instances, can even reproduce itself, as we know, provided, listen to this part, its surrounding fluids contain appropriate nutrients. So one of the leading cause of disease is that the environment or cells live in not appropriate. It doesn't have the necessary nutrients, and it has poisons that you are eating. That is what causes disease. Now, another way of looking at the immune system, apart from being the body defense system, is like an umbrella. So an umbrella is supposed to be protecting you from the elements of the weather, which are microorganisms, parasites, allergens, toxins, cancer cells, yes? And your body's defense system is your skin, your mucosal membranes, enzymes, lysozymes, phagocytes like your macrophages, your antibodies, your cells, T cells and B cells, your complement, your interferon. All of these are parts of the immune system. And you would think that what you eat has some role to play in how these things behave and how healthy they are. And if you think that, guess what? You're right. Now, another example, let me give you an example quickly. Vitamin D, for example, deficiency is decreased when you are not exposed to sunlight. And this vitamin D deficiency has been linked with the development of type 1 diabetes, right? And this is a research now in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, study in 2004 released. Hollick and et al. Released a study that showed that vitamin D deficiency was important in the causation of type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and schizophrenia and type 2 diabetes, all of which, including schizophrenia, have autoimmune links. So yes, mental illnesses, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder are in fact at heart autoimmune diseases, but we treat them with drugs to mess up the brain. Very unlike what the body would really want. Hence why people never really get better from these diseases, because we are treating symptoms and not looking at root causes. Your body, your immune system needs vitamin D, it needs oxygen, it needs water. These are important chemicals, and maybe the most important chemicals for your immune system to function properly. There are other things that we're going to get into. I'm going to be ramping it up fast now. In trying to nourish your immune system, there are some important things that you must look at. Dr. Hibbert did a great job of mentioning them. This is like repetition. So your supplements such as digestive enzymes are going to be important, because in fact, your ability to digest is going to impact what you absorb, and your immune system, 70% of which is in your gut, is going to depend on you being able to digest. So digestive enzymes is a part of treatment for autoimmune diseases. Probiotics are a central component, because we know, as you will learn, that the bacteria in your gut, which is getting ready now to be defined as a new organ. So your microbiome is going to be eventually designated an organ by itself because of the various functions and the amount of cells that it has in it, and the need to take care of it. So feeding your good bacteria with prebiotics and giving yourself probiotics is going to be an essential part of recovering from autoimmunity. Things like glutamine, which nourish your intestinal lining cells, quercetin and curcumin, which are in fact anti-inflammatory foods or supplements, they are going to be central to recovering from autoimmune diseases, right? If you're an autoimmune patient, there are some important steps that you must take in keeping with nourishing your immune system from a genetic perspective. So we're talking about genetics now. We'll get into the others in a minute. Eliminate processed foods. This is very important for anybody who wants to get well from anything at all. Anything in a bag or a bottle or a package that went to a factory and has colorings and flavorings and additives, even added vitamins, it's not good for you. And the less of these things you have, the better your health will be. So the more food you have that are whole. And so I'm going to challenge you, and you might say it's difficult, I'm going to challenge you if you're sick to cut out everything that comes from your supermarket. If it's not from the ground or off a tree, don't eat it. If it says has an expiry date and has ingredient listed on the package and has whatever, do not eat it. That's going to be having in it various things in it that you don't even know, that are not even listed on the label. And these are the causes of diseases. Eat organic as much as possible. It's not always possible, but go for organic. And over the next few weeks, I'll be introducing to Jamaica a number of organic farmers and producers of foods in Jamaica and worldwide as we launch our radio show. Look out for that. eat foods that are easy to digest. You know, bone broth, organ meats, berries, soups, smoothies. These are the things that you're going to be doing to genetically modify your body to be autoimmune disease free. Exercise goes without saying. I won't dwell on this. This is something that's essential. So if you're in pain and you can't move, move your hands. Any exercise is important, and you continue to do it, and you will see the improvements. Persons on TikTok watching, please continue to like this video and follow the page so you can get more content. Follow the page on TikTok, persons who are on TikTok right now who are watching, because I'm streaming live on both platforms. We're now going to turn over from genetics to the triggers of autoimmune disease, which if you understand the triggers and remove them, you will find that a lot of your autoimmune problems will significantly vanish sometime overnight. Person join me on TikTok, please be silent. I cannot have noise in the background. Please mute your mics. The main triggers are 5 things. 1, poor diet, and that's lack of nourishing foods and an increase in poison. Colorings, flavorings, additives, GMO foods, toxins are going to be things that are in your water, like your chlorine and fluorine, your heavy metals, like what's in your mercury filling, various things that we use around the house, our cleaning chemicals and things that we're exposed to, car exhaust, factory fumes. All of these things are toxins that may in fact be a trigger for autoimmunity. Microbes that may be in our intestinal tract. So we may have yeast that is intestinal, and the evidence of that may be recurrent vaginal yeast infection. You may have various infections in your sinuses, in your dental cavity. Dental problems are a big cause of autoimmunity. So take care of your dental health. The cure for your autoimmune problem may reside in you getting perfect dental health. Allergens that you may be exposed to. So I just told patients this week, listen, if you're allergic to a particular food, don't eat it. You may be laying the foundation for immune system malfunction. You're literally lighting fires in your immune system every single day. Stress, as we established, is a big trigger, and stress has a whole host of ramifications for your cortisol level, your norepinephrine and epinephrine levels. It dampens your good hormones like your endorphins, and it messes up your sleep. And these are the main triggers. And as I address patients with autoimmune disease, these are some of the first things I go after to try and remedy their problem. And once we lift the triggers off, patients begin to feel better almost overnight. They're not cured yet, but the symptoms begin to disappear once you remove the triggers. Now, going off on triggers, gluten is a big trigger. The top 3 triggers for autoimmune disease are going to be gluten, gluten, and gluten. Yeah, that's one of the biggest triggers. And most time I take patients off gluten, they feel better in no time. Not cured, but begin the process of healing. Now, gluten is commonly told to you that it's in 3 main things: wheat, barley, and rye. I spend a little time on this. Wheat, barley, and rye are the common gluten-containing foods. And if you look on the screen now, you'll see wheat, barley, and rye has different types of gluten. Wheat has in gliadin, yes, barley has in pordine, and rye has in secalin. And these are in high percentages, but there are other grains that has gluten too in low percentages, which can also cause problems. So yes, corn has a type of gluten called zein. Yes, rice has a type of gluten too. So does oats. So if you have taken yourself off rye, barley, and flour, and you're still feeling sick, maybe you need to stop these other grains. Grains all have gluten and can potentially, but less commonly, trigger autoimmune diseases through their impact on your gut, which you'll learn later on. So take a good look at this list, because there are books now. No Grain Diet by Dr. Mercola is one which I have in my house. I've read that book. And there are a couple other books that are showing now research that all grains are problematic, especially hybridized and GMO grains. So oats and rice and wheat and flour and corn are problems for people who are sick or who are getting sick. You know, if you eat these things and you're fine, you may delay illness for many years. You may die before you get autoimmune disease. Not all of us will get it. But certainly, if you're a sick person, you should come off of potential disease-causing foods. That's just logical. Otherwise, you'll be living on medication for life. Now, anything processed is 9 times out of 10 going to have gluten in it. So in managing, in crafting your diet for autoimmunity, I must underscore that you have to go on a whole foods, organic diet. No processed foods. If you have cancer, same thing. If you have diabetes, same thing. Whole foods, because gluten and other plant and other additives to food are going to be causes of your disease. Let me skip over this part here and get into Beyond Grains. There's another book here, No Grain, No Pain, a book here by a very prominent American writer, and he links grains with heavy metals, excess omega-6 in your diet, leaky gut syndrome, excess amount of carbohydrates causes weight gain, gluten, pesticides. There are so many reasons not to use grains, and it has been linked with obesity, diabetes type 1 and type 2, autoimmune thyroiditis, and even regular thyroid problems, various bowel problems, including IBS. So do you have this gas and bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and you're wondering what to do? Come off all grains. That may be the most important thing you could do to start healing. Now, your emotions and your spiritual wavelength is going to be important in deciding whether or not you're autoimmune disease free or you're going to remain sick. Culture, just hope, and that's going to be important. Hope gives you positive emotions, lifts stress off of you, and lowers your cortisol, gives you better sleep. So the word hope is important in recovery because of what it does to your hormones and your body by extension. Your thoughts become who you are. So what you think about, the Bible says if there's anything praiseworthy and beautiful and lovely, Apostle Paul writes, you should think on these things because he knows these things are in fact medicine. Laughter is in fact a medicine. And we have known that the Bible says it's not just medicine, it's good medicine. Unresolved emotions can set you back, unforgiveness, harboring long-term hurts. These things are important, and you need to partner with a very good practitioner that can guide you through the process of healing. Now we're moving to the last component of the trial. So we've looked at genetics, how to influence that through food and emotions. We looked at your triggers and what they are and how to avoid them. And now we're going to look at your intestinal permeability, which we call leaky gut syndrome, which is another important component of autoimmunity. And your intestinal lining is usually one cell thick. So one cell separate the Burger King and the fries and the Coke from your bloodstream. So I'm sure you don't want to have Coke float around your bloodstream, and your body doesn't either. So your body is supposed to get this Coke with all the different chemicals in it, because they are, digest it down, send out the poison part through your stool and absorb the water and whatever little glucose and whatever added vitamins the Coke might have in it, which it don't really have any. So your body's digestive system has an important role to separate good from bad. So you eat what tastes good, but your body can't allow blue number 13 and this different citric acid and all these things that go into your bloodstream. Them things will poison you. You eat them, but they don't get into your bloodstream, right? They don't allow, all of the different things that's in the jerk chicken, the different burn, and the nitrate compounds and the heterocyclic amines. Those things cannot be allowed to go in your bloodstream. They have to pass out in the stool, and your body absorb just the amino acids from the chicken, yeah? And the pepper sauce and all of those things. Most of those things have to go out. But imagine a scenario where your intestinal lining has holes in it. No, it can't literally block out these poisons. So guess what happens? They start to go into your bloodstream. And most of us have these holes because of different things we have been doing. And here is a list of the things that causes the holes to come in your intestine. I'm going for the list. Food allergies. So if you're eating foods that you're allergic to, that's going to cause leaky gut syndrome. If you're stressed chronically, if you have multiple infections, that can cause it. if you have dysbiosis, which Dr. Hibbert hinted at, which is an abnormal amount of different types of bacteria, abnormal amounts or abnormal types, that is classified as dysbiosis, and that can cause you to have leaky gut. And this occurs because, you know, you take medication like antibiotics when you shouldn't take them, and you've been eating GMO foods, and you say you're gonna die anyway, fine. Inflammation of any type in your body can cause leaky gut syndrome, especially in your intestines, such as acid reflux and gastritis and these colic and diarrhea, these infections from foods that you eat. Any systemic disease, so if you have a chronic illness like diabetes, that in fact is going to weaken your gut lining and cause leaky gut syndrome. If you have poor digestion, if you're taking toxins in your body through your water or through your food, or upon your skin, if you're putting on a lot of lotion and rubbing on aluminum on your arm every day, these things, you're not going to get away with them. They're going to come back to haunt you. So, you know, we do all these things and our bodies try its best to keep us out of harm's way. But if you keep doing the bad things every single day, after a while, you will get sick. As I said, medications, some of the most damaging medications to your gut line are going to be pain medications, acid-reducing medications, antibiotics. No, antibiotics, don't get me wrong, are life-saving. They are a miracle. They make a difference between millions of people dying and living. Difference. But when used in excess and when not necessary, they provide more harm than good. I'm going to skip a full slide because I want to end to give Dr. Nicholas a chance to come in. But you guys are getting the gist. To fix your leaky gut syndrome, guys, you're going to be trying to look at a couple of things. You want to definitely enhance your GALT, which is a gastrointestinal associated lymphatic. You want to tighten those junctions, which are damaged. You want to increase your secretory IgA, which is your surface immunoglobulin. You want to promote friendly bacteria in your gut and get rid of the bad bacteria. You want to restore proper stomach acid. Proper amount of stomach acid is necessary for a functional gastrointestinal tract. Medication to reduce your acid in your stomach is going to make you sick if you take them long term. It must. Your body was not designed to live on pantoprazole and omeprazole and gas X and all these things. These things are anti-physiology, that your body was made to have enough acid in the stomach, and that's necessary for you to digest food, absorb food, kill germs. Now, things to do to get your leaky gut solved quickly. Intermittent fasting, rest your intestinal system. Don't be eating every 2-3 hours. Nothing don't go so, that will make you sick. Avoid dairy, grains, lot of legumes are bad for you, and we'll get into that in other videos I'll do. Nightshades, like if you're sick and feeling pain, Irish potato, sweet pepper, tomatoes, problem foods for you. If you're sick and feeling pain, problem foods. Eliminate all processed foods. Consume food that are easy to digest. Practice mindful breathing. This is very important. Dr. Hibbert mentioned that again. Pay attention to what your stomach says. If you eat something and you feel sick, if you feel gassy and bloated, don't eat it back again. It's a message your body is communicating with you. Make sure you have adequate amount of water, 1 ounce of water per kilogram of body weight. That's very important for your immune system and for your gut to function properly. And keep moving. Keep your bowel moving naturally with probiotics. Take magnesium, high dose vitamin C, digestive enzyme, apple cider vinegar, bile acid supplements, and pay close attention to avoiding food classified as FODMAPs, which are fructose, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. More about that in other videos. I can't go through all that now, but take note of these important things and avoid the gluten. That's going to be important. I'm coming to a close. Avoid allergic foods. Definitely pay attention to your grains. As I said there, I'm coming to a close. Repair leaky gut by removing all the things that are bad for you. And I mentioned all those before. Definitely coming to a close now. Replace these things in your diet. take the supplements to repair gut lining, and then take your probiotics. And as we close, you need to understand recovering from autoimmunity may take time, it may take up to 3 years, but if you start on the right road, within weeks, within days, you will begin to feel better. You will begin to start seeing, and my patients who go on my elimination diet, start supplements, begin to feel better. Their MSQ scores go down within 4 weeks. There's no one approach for everybody. This is an individual approach that I'm suggesting. So you can begin to read, begin to implement some of what I've recommended to you. But if you need additional help, find a functional medicine doctor, or as you will find in a minute, a naturopathic doctor who also knows all these things to help you to recover and to reverse your autoimmune disease. Over to you, Stanellia.
Oh, okay. Thank you so very much, Dr. Thomas. That was a lot of information, and I hope the audience, the folks on YouTube and TikTok, I hope they have been listening carefully, not only listening, that they have been taking notes as well. So as I go on the YouTube chat, I'm seeing 156 devices are there. And so Grace Nemarchi says, excellent information. Delroy Stevens says, respect, doc. Tamara, she says, food from factory versus food from plant. Asa Connor, she's saying, Dr. Thomas, thanks for sending me the link. Powerful information. Ryan Rose says, powerful indeed. Shireen, very informative. Heather Christian, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Mary Ingram, thank you so much, Doc. And Patrice Parks Fendison, thanks much for really needed that. So we're seeing the chat is really lighting up with lots of information. Person saying, thank you. Juliet saying, boy, Juliet K says, inflammation is a terrible thing. And indeed, it's a terrible thing. And so as we continue at this particular moment, I'm going to invite Dr. Nicholas to come, and he's going to look at immunity and cancer. Over to you, Dr. Nicholas.
Thank you, Sister Nellian. Good evening, everyone. And it's quite interesting, Dr. Thomas, how synchronized the naturopathy information is with functional medicine. And I take note of when the dawn of the 21st century, and researchers believe that they would have understood all when they cracked the genetic code. That's when they recognized that they only know 1 or 2% of how the human DNA works. And interestingly, at that time, the Human Microbiome Project began. And a big part of that gave rise to functional medicine studies, because that's when researchers recognized that repairing the gut was important to host disabled participants screen sharing. Just allow me to share. But that's when researchers recognized how important it is to repair the microbiome if one is to repair health. So thanks, Doc, you are quite spot on with what you were saying. Repair the gut, you repair the brain even, because 90% of the neurotransmitters that are used in the brain for effective nerve communication are made in the gut. And that is interesting. Can I share now? Still can't share, Doc.
Go ahead now.
All right, thank you, Doc. Let me. All right, immunity and cancer from a naturopathic perspective. Move this out of the way. All right, the human body, a wondrous collection of trillions of cells functioning in a finely tuned harmony to maintain life. In his book, The Body is the Hero, Dr. Ronald Glaser described the synergism of our bodies as a great movable city made up of 1 trillion individuals, all with different skills, yet working together. It has its own ventilation, its own sewage system, its own communication network, 1 billion miles of interconnecting highways and side streets, a system of alleys, its own supermarkets and factories, its own disposable plants and heating units. All it needs is a few basic raw materials. Since I've returned to Jamaica, 80% of the people I have seen are cancer clients. And I know that cancer is on the rise, and I wish the wonderful field of epidemiology will actually start giving some information on what the possible root causes are to this massive rise in cancer. But I believe Dr. Hibbert did very well in simplifying and summarizing the complex immune system and how it works, and those trusty soldiers and workmen in the defense force, the body's defense force. The body is designed by God for us to give it just some simple raw materials. This screen, Why Do We Eat, summarizes the raw materials that we need to give the body to maintain optimal immunity and health. Of course, if we choose junk food, which is any food that is void of one or more of these particular reasons why the body says, I want food, then we will be making a junk body. And that will give rise to malignancy, and that will give rise to abnormal cell behavior, abnormal cellular metabolism, and then tumors, cancers of all sorts will arrive. So cancer, by definition, according to WebMD, is a group of diseases characterized by the uncontrolled growth and spread of abnormal cells in the body. And these cells can form tumors, they can invade nearby tissues, and in some cases metastasize to other parts of the body. And they travel through the lymph channels. So the war really takes place in the lymph channels. So if your white blood cells, your trusty workmen, aren't up to the task, if they aren't fit because of how you feed the machinery, then the cancer will move from its point of genesis to other points in the body. So if the cancer has metastasized, you can know that your lymph channels have weak white blood cells. The lymphocytes and all the macrophages, all of those trusty workmen, where when they are properly fed, one trusty workman white blood cell can destroy up to 14 different bacteria or virus. But if we feed it with sugar, as we will see in this presentation, we can get to the stage where we can have one white blood cell only having the capacity to deal with one bacteria. So that's a 99% reduction in the capacity of the immune system cells to destroy pathogens. Cancer can also occur in almost any tissue or organ and may disrupt normal bodily functions. I won't spend too much time on the immune system and how it works. I actually dropped out a couple of overlapping slides because Dr. Hibbert did very well with it. But I'll still go through a quick summary for those who may have joined late. So the immune system is a complex network of cells, tissues, and organs in the body that work together to defend against harmful invaders, such as viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens. Its primary function is to recognize and eliminate foreign substances, foreign proteins. Doc spoke at length about leaky gut syndrome. The immune system is not one of the 7 digestive organs that God gave us. So when the immune system has to get involved in digestion, it means that undigested protein particles, foreign proteins, foreign peptides have crossed into the bloodstream and war begins. That's when certain foods will trigger pain and the immune system have to get involved to deal with reducing those pain and inflammation, because we start with a leaky gut issue. So repairing the gut is a key first step in any disease treatment. Why do we need to understand the relationship between immunity and cancer? There are 4 primary reasons. Immunosurveillance. The immune system has a natural ability to detect and destroy cancer cells. The immune cells, like the T cells and the natural killer cells, can recognize and eliminate cells that have become cancerous. They become abnormal. So this surveillance helps in preventing the development of cancer in the body. Immunoevasion. So some cancer cells can develop strategies to evade the immune system's detection and attack mechanism, right? So this is why we need to have a strong immune system. We need to exercise it well. We need to feed the system well. We need to rest well, right? Doc spoke of epigenetic factors. Epigenetics means on top of genetics. And the Human Microbiome Project actually taught that there are some activities like proper resting, enough sleep, enough recreation, exercise, that can actually help the cells to express themselves very well. So understanding these mechanisms is crucial for developing effective cancer treatments, and such as immunotherapies that help the immune system overcome these invasive or evasive tactics. Immunotherapy. Now, this is a groundbreaking approach to cancer treatment that harnesses the power of one's own immune system to target and destroy cancer cells. And it has shown promising results in various types of cancer and is changing the landscape of cancer therapy. I'll talk a little bit more about it because it is being sold now like chemotherapy was sold in its genesis as the one-dimensional approach. But the careful reading of the medical literature has already highlighted several challenges, notwithstanding the fact that it is showing promising results. But it's not the one-dimensional quick fix all, right? But it's one of the reasons why we need to understand the immune system's response to cancer. Research and prevention is the final one, because we need to understand the interaction between the immune system and cancer that can help to lead to development of preventative measures and early detection measures. And it can also guide research into personalized treatment options tailored to an individual's immune response. And this is very important because gone are the days when medicine should do a one-size-fits-all, because we realize, and researchers are recognizing, that that approach has a very poor success rate, the one-size-fits-all. In fact, unfortunately, when I was researching a few years ago, of the billions of dollars given for cancer research by individuals and corporations yearly, only 2 to 5% is used for nutritional research. Only 2 to 5%. And I understand why, because you cannot patent what you may find in the natural world that helps to reverse cancer or any other heinous disease. It's a travesty though, because the intelligent human is driven primarily by profit. instead of the noble institution of helping the other. And that needs an adjustment. I believe the figure might be getting less and less these days with the advance of mRNA technology and these other immune therapies, where nutrition research is actually getting less and less funding, even though the money is received in billions from individual donors and companies. So in summary, the relationship between cancer and immunity is significant because it influences development, progression, and treatment of cancer, offering hope for more effective therapies and improved outcomes for cancer patients. We have seen where if nutrition is ignored, the flagship or the standard approach of surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy fail or have a low success rate many times. The individual would be wise to choose their group of professionals wisely and ensure that they have a naturopath on the team or a functional medicine practitioner, as well as their oncologist on the team. The one will give full attention to the whole person instead of the symptoms. Remember, the cancer is just a symptom of toxemia, something going wrong in the body, and you need to fix the root cause. I'll talk about a case quickly where just last October, I had to work with a young lady, well, my age group, and she was sent home to die because she had a terrible case of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And she's been on chemotherapy for over a year and a half. And when the chemotherapy stopped working, or they think it's no longer working, she was in terrible pain. 5'9", less than 100 pounds, difficult to look at. She was sent home to die, and they didn't expect her to live beyond October of last year. I put her on a program of nutrition, completely overhauling the diet, the lifestyle, tell her that she has to sit in the sun because she's hiding from the sun. Sit in the sun at least for 3 or 4 repetitions of 15 to 30 minutes each day. Soak in the sun, find a corner. She could hardly do anything for herself. She couldn't shower herself, she couldn't bathe, she couldn't do anything. She couldn't drive, she was so weak. The long and short of that is that the nutrient program, and at that point she was not given even pain medication to go home with, but she was told that she should go home and eat anything that she wants to because she was expected to die. In summer, she went back to work July 2nd on that detox, cleansing, and nutrient program. And she has put on more than 40 pounds and continuing. She's driving herself, right? Nutrition therapy. Another case I had with myeloma, right here in Jamaica as well. But this family could afford to do the natural immune therapy, which is based on European research. It's using a very sterile solution of chondroitin sulfate and a sodium base. It's nebulized. That case, that person was on chemotherapy for over 2 years. And it gave her severe case of diabetes, insulin dependent. She had bone degeneration, significant bone degeneration. She was on steroids, so she got bloated. A nutrition program. You got to change these things in your diet and lifestyle. You got to kick the dairy. You got to kick the sugar, right? It's interesting that people are not told that the first line of defense, if you want to go on a journey to conquer cancer, is to take the cut off the enemy line, and that's high sugar, salted meats, animal proteins primarily, dairy, those things that feed the cancer. If you don't cut them off, then the white blood cells will not have the capacity to destroy these pathogens. It's as simple as that. No matter how much chemotherapy you take, no matter how much radiation you zap yourself with, no matter how many times you go to cut out where the symptom of cancer turns up in a tumor, right? Those are just fighting the symptoms, but you have to go after the root cause. So this myeloma case was being sent on for clinical trial drugs, another set of drugs. Now, the family member who contracted me to come and see the relative, she works in an oncology unit in the US. And she understood what it means when you're being now referred to clinical trial drugs. So it terrified the family. So I was contracted, I came down, I applied it with the family, go through the nutritional discussion, scan the body and recognize that we had these micronutrient deficiencies, which are key. Deficiency in selenium, iodine, magnesium, calcium was clear on the list. So we scanned the body to get to the root cause of the problem, to identify these potential deficiencies so that we can help to restructure how the body reacts, how the cells express themselves, right? Because our job, yes, if there's a rapidly dividing cancer, you might want to have surgery on it. But after doing that surgery, you still need to have the support in nutrition, the support in a healthy lifestyle. So let's look at the components of the immune system. Oh, that person at the start of this year, in January, she was taken completely off the chemotherapy drugs, and she's doing just fine. Her blood pressure has stabilized. Her blood sugar, the need for insulin is now just about 1 unit per day. And she's doing quite well. Back out to work, carrying on with her business. 2 different approach, but the fundamental of nutrition was the key, nourishing the body. Of course, fundamental of prayer was also important in dealing with these cases, because whereas we doctors send the bill, the Lord does the healing, and that is important. So God was an important factor in that. So your white blood cells or leukocytes are the primary cellular components of the immune system. They circulate throughout the body and are divided into several types, including neutrophils, which Dr. Hibbert spoke of earlier. And they are like the tank brigade, and they're like the frontline men. And they are most abundant. They are the most abundant white blood cells, and they are responsible for quickly responding to infections by engulfing and destroying the pathogens. The lymphocytes, which are divided into T cells and B cells. The T cells, these play a central role in cell-mediated immunity, coordinating the immune response and directly attacking the infected or abnormal cells, cancer cells. The B cells produce antibodies to foreign proteins, right? The antibodies, which are themselves proteins, can neutralize or mark pathogens for destruction by other immune cells. So it's like a laser-guided missile where the B cells point the laser or mark the cells, and then the other soldiers come in and make sure that they give full attention to destroying those enemy cells. The monocytes, which mature into macrophages, they are larger and they actually engulf and digest pathogens and cellular debris. And they release things, chemicals like hydrogen peroxide and other chemicals, to neutralize these invading pathogens. Antibodies, immunoglobulins, are Y-shaped proteins produced by B cells in response to the presence of specific pathogens. And they can bind to foreign proteins, foreign molecules on the surface of pathogens, marking them for destruction by immune cells. So it's a wonderful, delicate system that God has given us to care for. And the way we feed it will determine the strength of our BDF, body defense force, right? I think that's it, Dr. Hebert, body defense force. The complement system consists of a group of proteins that work together to enhance the immune response. It can help to destroy pathogens directly, trigger inflammation, and aid in the removal of complexes. And some of these could include proteolytic enzymes, which actually help to break down fibrin or thrombolytic buildup in the system that can cause blood clotting and so forth. The lymphatic system is a network of vessels, nodes, and organs, such as the spleen and the lymph nodes that transport lymph, which is a clear fluid containing white blood cells throughout the body. Lymph nodes serve as filtration centers where immune cells can encounter and respond to pathogens. This is where the bulk of the war takes place. So this is where we need to ensure that we are sweating. In cancer therapy, sauna therapy is actually very, very effective because it quickens the lymph circulation, and it also helps you to dump some of the pathogens that are in the lymph nodes or even in the subcutaneous layer under the skin. You dump those toxins out, right, just by ensuring that you sweat. Yes, the spectrum that is in the infrared sauna is also available in the sunlight. So that cancer client who may be exhausted and spend all the money with the specialists can just enjoy the sunlight. It is not true that spending time in the sun will give you skin cancer. Not true. I haven't heard of anyone who knows any construction worker or farmer who has contracted skin cancer by being in the sun for an extended period of time. Skin cancer is a fat problem. Animal fat consumption, an increase in animal fat consumption, when you get exposed to the sunlight for long periods of time and you are aggressively consuming animal fats, that's where your risk of skin cancer is increased. This is why it's only the dairy and the high protein consumption countries that has a problem with skin cancer. The Norway, the New Zealand, USA, UK, those are the countries because they consume a lot of animal fats, right? So it's not true that you should rub sunscreen on every move you make when you are in the tropics if you're not consuming a whole lot of animal fats. How does the immune system protect the body? First, recognition. The immune system can identify and recognize these foreign substances through the presence of antigens. Each pathogen has unique antigens that trigger an immune response. Very intelligent system. Its response. When the immune system detects the invader, it launches a coordinated response. This is the mechanism that we need to help in the body. This can involve the production of antibodies, activation of immune cells, and the release of chemical messengers called cytokines. They attack and eliminate. Immune cells, such as T cells and macrophages, can directly attack and destroy infected or abnormal cells. It's very easy for the immune system that is well exercised. And the memory, the adaptive immunity, means that our system is trained. So those who are still afraid of COVID and have caught COVID 2 or 3 times, you don't need to be afraid because your adaptive immunity will remember all the details of the spike protein and is able to identify, detect, and destroy, right, with just a little help. When it was brand new, yes, it would have taken time for the adaptive immunity to to understand, learn how the spike protein is shaped, what determines how it expresses itself and so forth. But after contracting and surviving, your adaptive immunity now remembers, right? This memory allows for a quicker and more robust response if the same pathogen reinfects the body, provides long-term immunity. So this is a simplistic view of the very, very complex chemical warfare that occurs daily and minutely in our bodies. And this is the phagocytosis, where the macrophages bind to the pathogens, absorbs it, releases powerful chemicals like hydrogen peroxide, and neutralizes that pathogen. This is simplified, but this is the general idea of how the body creates the antibodies and destroy these pathogens. What weakens the body's ability to destroy these pathogens? Too much sugar in the diet. Over 100 years ago, the average intake of sugar per person was just about 8 pounds. Today, it is over 156 pounds and counting per year. The corresponding increase in sugar intake has led to an increase in many different diseases, including cancer. At 0 teaspoons of sugar per day, and let me say that the kidneys can really only deal with about 6 teaspoons of sugar per day, right? Which is still fairly good. It's still very active, the immune system. The white blood cells are still strong. So at 0 teaspoons, 1 white blood cell can destroy 14 bacteria. 6 teaspoons, 1 can destroy 10. When we get to 2 cans of soda, or a can of soda on a bullock cake, for example, we're above 12 teaspoons. So we are 5.5. So by the time it's on the 6th bacteria, the white blood cell is being beaten up by that 6th one. 2 cans of soda and some bun and cheese, 18 teaspoons. 1 white blood cell can only destroy 2 bacteria. And when we get to some ice cream at the end of the day as well with the 2 cans of soda, we're above 24 teaspoons of sugar. So it's 1 to 1. The second bacteria will be beating our white blood cell. So there are some cancers that are also directly linked to sugar consumption, according to research: colon cancer, rectal cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer, kidney cancer, and cancers of the nervous system. Dr. Hibbert went through innate versus adaptive immunity earlier. So the innate, I'm just summarizing, is the non-specific. This is like the first line of defense that we were born with. And it provides immediate protection against a wide range of pathogens. And it is non-specific, which means that it doesn't distinguish between different types of invaders. The adaptive or specific means that it is highly specialized, it's trained and developed over time, right? And the polio vaccination has taught us that immunity, even vaccine immunity, can be lifelong. So we got to be careful how we're running after boosters, because some people are on their 4th and 5th boosters for what's going on now, and they're still contracting the virus, right? And we have to, the intelligent human have to think differently, right? But research in the polio vaccine have indicated that immunity can be lifelong. So our adaptive immunity, it's not dependent on what man does. The Bible in Jeremiah 17 verse 4 tells us that cursed is the man that trusteth in man. We have to trust what God has given us and exercise it by doing right, treating the body as the temple of God, feeding it well. And these powerful innate and adaptive immunity will do the work to prevent and recover from cancer. So a cancer battle plan: know your enemy. cut off the enemy supply lines to reduce the risk of cancer. We need to rebuild the natural defenses, and we need to bring in the reinforcements. The reinforcements is where we get the herbs and the nutraceuticals and the helpful therapies that are non-invasive, your sauna therapy, your pulse electromagnetic frequency therapy, your light therapy, your shock wave therapy, therapies that stimulate microcirculation. The Germans believe that if you repair circulation, you help the body to repair itself, because the small capillaries becomes blocked before the large channels are affected. So by reversing the blockages in the small capillaries in the body, you help to transport oxygen, you help to transport nutrients, and you also help to enhance detoxification. Oxygen helps with detoxification. Nutrients help to strengthen the cells and boost biochemical reactions to repair cells and tissues. If you have a circulation problem, you may have a malignancy problem. So fixed circulation, according to the Germans, who are the pioneers in pulse electromagnetic frequency therapy, which is something that I do, stimulates microcirculation and help the body to heal itself. It reduces inflammation. It can also induce sound sleep for people who are restless, right? It helps with in fact, many of the golfers in their locker rooms, they actually have these devices where when they do the long walks in the sun and they're playing, they do it before the PM, before and after their sessions, and it pays them dividends. It's important that we maintain morale. The state of mind, as Doc mentioned earlier, Dr. Thomas, is important if you're going to conquer cancer. If you get depressed, you're in trouble. Family members should ensure that they provide the moral support, right? The social dependency where the person can count on them so that they don't slip into depression. Take them out, right? We have to also carefully select the professional help. A one-dimensional approach more often than not leads to failure. And many times in cancer treatment, people tend to consider nutrition too late as a last resort, instead of considering it at the outset. The website poisonfluoride.org have listed and collated research dating as far back as 1914. Many have been published in the prestigious medical journals. And it shows that hypothyroidism is a root cause of many, many different diseases. As Doc mentioned earlier, many people who are having underperforming thyroid are totally unaware of it. That's where some of the cancers, including diabetes, that's where heart problems, osteoarthritis comes from. That's where digestive issues comes from as well. One of the causes. Because what researchers have found is if you don't have good stomach acid production, you cannot break down proteins effectively. Now, there is an element called glutathione. Some of you may know of it. Glutathione is very important to transport the T3 hormone produced by the thyroid into the mitochondria, which is the energy production center of the cells, right? If glutathione is not present or deficient, you may have many different symptoms that indicate underactive thyroid. Okay, and some of these issues you present them to the doctor, you have multiple issues, and they load you up with drugs when you really only need to fix your stomach acid production, fix your digestion, right? So research in America have indicated that 35% of cancer deaths yearly are diet related. So one would be wise to consider diet and lifestyle when they're even considering any other therapy if they are dealing with cancer. In the naturopathic world, we see and approach cancer as cases of severe toxemia. What is toxemia? Toxemia, we believe, is really the only disease that manifests itself in the many different conditions with which we give names, including the autoimmune ones, right? The autoimmune ones, the metabolic ones, you name them. Most of them is because of toxemia. Toxemia prevents the immune system from responding effectively and correcting the issue. It's a good idea to do your periodic cleanse and detox. It's a good idea to actually have a good quality liquid multivitamin, multimineral, along with your probiotics and your digestive enzymes. Repair digestion and you repair a lot of your problems, because the body will balance the delicate acid alkaline ratio and help you to actually recover from almost any disease. It's good to have the professionals who understand nutrition. And I'm being reminded the 8 laws of health too, right? So the vegetable kingdom, let's talk a little bit about the response as we go on to close up. The vegetable kingdom supplies an abundance of vital nutrients and is an essential contributor to human health. Vegetables do not only provide primary nutrients, but they also contain an abundance of vitamins and minerals. Vitamins and minerals are coenzymes. That means that they trigger biochemical reactions to repair cells and tissues. If we are deficient in one or more mineral or vitamin, that can lead to many different diseases. And hopefully I get to the slide where I can show you where the Nutrition Security Institute in America have listed key minerals where, when deficient, can lead to specific conditions. Moreover, vegetables help to rid the body of toxins, and they contain disease preventative components, which include anti-cancer phytochemicals. And I'll also show you a slide with anti-cancer phytochemicals, which includes foods that we should include if we're battling cancer. In the United States, cancer is the second leading cause of mortality, and it has been estimated that 35% of cancer deaths are diet-related. Estimates for diet-related diseases range from 10 to 70%, right? So statistics like these and the fact that the consumption of fruits and vegetables have been linked to a reduced cancer risk, as did the National Cancer Institute, to recommend increased consumption of fruits and vegetables. Very important. Okay, the doctor of the 21st century will understand the vitamin mineral interactions. Now, this is a very, very small subset because there's just under 100 minerals and just under about 20 vitamins, all right? So this relationship could have been very complex, but let's use this simplistic subset to consider some delicate interactions of powerful vitamins and minerals. Selenium, for example, relies on vitamin E and vitamin C for proper take-up. If selenium is deficient, if selenium and vitamin E is deficient, it increases a woman's risk of breast cancer by 10 times. Researchers believe, for example, that the average person is getting less than the 300 micrograms, only about 50% of the 300 micrograms of selenium that are needed each day to stave off cancer. Vitamin E if vitamin E alone is deficient, it increases her risk 2 times. So vitamin E and selenium is very good for the breast cancer patient. Zinc, a deficiency in zinc is almost always seen in all cases of prostate cancer or malabsorption of zinc. If one is impotent, and many times, for example, when a couple wants to have children and they cannot, the woman gets the blame. But sometimes the men are deficient in zinc and he is not aware, because every time we have that happy hour with our wives, we dump zinc, and it has to be replenished by nutrition, by the diet. So if the man is not replenishing his zinc, if he's not on a good diet, he's running the risk of having early prostate inflammation, which can also lead to prostate cancer, right? Zinc is very important in the immune system function. It's very important in the liver. It's very important for the immune system to operate. Selenium also actually helps the person who have been on radiation therapy because it helps to clean the bloodstream of the harmful effects of radiation. Right? It also helps the DNA to repair itself. And at high levels, which are just about 800 micrograms per day, it is directly toxic to cancer cells. It retards the growth of tumors in human breast tissue, and it can deactivate the radiation toxicity in the body, right? So it really works to clean the blood from the harmful effects of chemotherapy and also liver malfunction, right? So if I were battling cancer, my nutrient therapy will include vitamin C, vitamin E, the minerals, selenium, iodine, and zinc, at the very least, right? Because these form a potent therapy for battling cancer. The Nutrition Security Institute have told us in their research and their recording that when minerals go down, diseases go up. And they've only given us, and this is just an excerpt of some of the disease conditions. Heart disease, for example, and this is studies done on the US population between 1980 and 1994. So they found that heart conditions increased 19% over the period, and the mineral deficiencies they found associated with the disease, chromium, copper, magnesium, potassium, selenium. I'm sure this number is now way up because of the myocarditis and the pericarditis and the heart problems brought on by experimental drugs. Chronic bronchitis, 56% increase over the period. Copper, iodine, iron, magnesium, selenium, and zinc are found to be deficient. Asthma, 87% increase. And I'm sure it's so much higher now. Magnesium is found to be deficient. Tinnitus, ringing in the ears, which is a very popular condition these days. Calcium, magnesium, and zinc is deficient. And bone deformities, also very popular these days. Calcium, copper, fluoride, magnesium. So these are some of the foods that we should get used to, the preventative foods, the cancer preventative foods. And ingredients, arranged in order of effectiveness. Garlic, cabbage, licorice, soybeans, ginger, the umbelliferae group of foods, which are carrots, celery, parsnips. Carrots and celery drink is absolutely powerful for the one battling cancer. Onions, turmeric tea, the citrus, right? Whole wheat, if that wheat is not hybridized. Hybridization changes the gluten structure and the starch structure, which even makes the whole wheat actually have a higher glycemic index than even sugar. Organic brown rice, flax, anti-cancer components, solanaceae group, tomato, eggplant, and peppers. If you're having pains, this is also the nightshade. So if you're having pains, you want to not touch these ones. the cruciferae, the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Cabbage is also a part of this group. Absolutely powerful. And then you have the other herbs, the mince, the cucumber, the sage, the thyme, the chives, cantaloupe, absolutely powerful. So this is a table that the cancer client should get used to and include these foods if they're organic, right? When we consider the garlic, for example, the garlic considered by researchers as one of the most powerful anti-cancer foods known by researchers by itself. You can synergize it with other things and you get more power, but the garlic is absolutely powerful. The green tea, I'm not a fan of the green tea because of the caffeine, which can artificially stimulate the nerves, can lead to a little enervation, but it has rightly far less caffeine than coffee. The soybeans have flavonoids that are actually boosters of antioxidant protection in the body, right? Which is possibly one of the reasons why the Asians have far less cancer rates than the Western, because they consume pretty much 70% of the soy produced. But it's important to get non-GMO soy. Good grains, the cruciferous vegetables, the cabbage, the broccoli, the cauliflower, absolutely powerful. The citrus, right? The pumpkin seeds, the pumpkins, the licorice, the flax. And this is just a small subset. So this is what people need to become aware of instead of learning the names of drugs. Learning how to use these foods in synergy to combat cancer would pay dividends. Here is the screen that shows the colorectal cancer rates by countries. These are the countries with the highest colorectal cancer rates. Now, I was doing some postdoctoral studies on scientific basis for nutrition, and I was amazed to see our small country, Jamaica, out of the just about 300 countries in the world. Jamaica has made this list of top 25 countries with highest colorectal cancer rates. Why is that? It also shows that we do not consume as much meat, for example, as the Denmark, UK, Canadians, the US, New Zealand, but we're still on this list. I believe that our low fiber intake and our high jerk meat intake, low fiber, high jerk meat intake, jerked over open flame with a high benzopyrene, which is a known carcinogen, is possibly one factor. That's why we are on this list. Low vegetable consumption, high jerk meats and fried meat intake. So we're losing people in their early 40s and late 30s to colorectal cancer each year. And it would be good for us to get a handle as to why that is the case. All right. Doc, I think time has been well spent. So I wanted to go through a little bit of the challenges in immunotherapy, right? So that people are aware that when they choose immune therapy, they also still need to choose nutrition therapy as well. So let me run through it quickly, see if I can spend 5 minutes to go through. So resistance to treatment. So these are about 8 challenges to immune therapy, right? Resistance to the treatment, primary resistance, where some patients do not respond to the immune therapy from the start, often due to a lack of existing immune cell infiltration within the tumor. Acquired resistance, patients who initially respond may develop resistance over time. So cancer cells can evolve mechanisms to evade immune attack. So this is why exercising the natural innate immunity and adaptive immunity is going to be important, because some nutrients like vitamin C, curcumin, quercetin, they can actually break the bacterial film that surrounds cancer cells and allow the immune system to attack it. Autoimmune reactions, immune overactivity. So activating the immune system aggressively can lead to immune-related adverse events, where the immune system mistakenly attacks the healthy tissues, right? So common immune-related adverse events include skin rashes, colitis, and thyroid dysfunction. A balancing act is required, balancing immune activity to target cancer cells while avoiding harm to healthy cells and tissues can be challenging. High treatment cost is also one prohibitive factor. Expensive therapies, immunotherapies can be costly due to their complex development processes, including genetic engineering, clinical trials, and ongoing monitoring. Limited access, high cost can limit access to immune therapy for some patients, which lead to healthcare disparity. Variability in response. Patient variability. Response to immunotherapy can vary widely between individuals, so it's not a one-size-fits-all. Predictive biomarkers, identifying the reliable biomarkers to predict treatment response is an ongoing challenge in the field. And the tumor heterogeneity, which is the wide diversity in the tumor. So the tumor evolution, tumor can evolve and adapt over time, leading to variations in the immune landscape within the tumor microenvironment. So there is intelligence in these tumors also. So the innate and adaptive intelligence is what we need to strengthen. Intra-tumor heterogeneity. Different regions of a tumor may have distinct immune profiles, which make the treatment planning more complex. Lack of effective targets. Not all cancers respond to immunotherapy, right? Tumor immune invasion. Some tumors employ mechanisms that can hinder the immune cell infiltration or the immune cell attack, which make them less responsive to the immune therapy. Combination therapy complexity. So trying to balance synergy with toxicity is also another challenge that the researchers are seeing. And optimal sequencing of the pathogen is also another challenge for researchers. Resistance to checkpoint inhibitors, emerging resistance mechanism. Cancer cells can develop new mechanisms to evade immune checkpoint inhibitors, requiring ongoing research to counteract these resistance mechanisms, right? Timing and duration of treatment, duration of the treatment, determining how long the person should stay on the immune therapy is also another area of challenge, right? And the timing in the treatment course is also another area. So these challenges highlight the complexity of cancer immunotherapy and the need for ongoing research to address them. But let us exercise the natural and innate immunity, and we should be able to conquer cancer. Time has been well spent, Doc. No time to go through how to reduce the risk of cancer, but if you want these slides, I can always share them so that the Be Healthy family can actually get access to them. Over to you, Sister Nellian.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Nicholas. Wow. It has been indeed a very good evening, a well-spent evening, and we have had lots of information that is so very useful for us as we continue on this journey of healthy living, and being healthy, and that is really the foundation of the group, of our Be Healthy group, is for us to continue to understand and appreciate this body, this wonderful body that the Lord has given us, and He expects us to take very, very good care of same. Now, as I look in the chat, we're seeing we're 161 strong, and Romaine Edwards, he made a statement. He said, as a physician, my concern is that alternative medicine practitioners advise patients not to do chemo and then when it spreads, I see them acutely suffering from metastasis. So he was making that statement. Aquila Henry Lawrence, she said, thank you for your frankness, Dr. Nicholas. Geraldine Martin Chen, appreciation goes a far way. Not many could pay for this information. We thank you. Sansan's inspiration, she says, very informative. We need to take care of our bodies. Maxine Brown says, I am a living testament that everything Dr. Nicholas is saying is true. I am a cancer patient of his. So there we do have a testimonial. Rosalie Fisher, she says, I have to visit Dr. Nicholas. I see doctor have an office in Maryland. My God, doctor, thanks. May God bless you and your family in Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Amen. Somebody's asking a question. Christina Lewis, she said, good night, doc. I am on tamoxifen, and can she take selenium with it? So that's a question that's probably been asked. I don't know if we can answer those questions here or what. What should we do? Doc, what do you suggest? Do we have any time for answering questions, or what do you suggest?
Well, tamoxifen is a hormonal treatment for breast cancer and who have tumor markers for estrogen, for example, they respond to tamoxifen. Selenium is a mineral, and I have not seen any interactions with taking any minerals and tamoxifen. So certainly she should not only be taking selenium, but all her minerals. Should be taking her magnesium, her zinc, and these can be taken, my friend, through nuts and seeds. So selenium is particularly high in Brazil nuts, for example. But if you want to take a supplement, a multi-mineral supplement, such as the Longevity's plant-derived minerals or the colloidal minerals from Berry Treasure are good options. I generally prefer when patients also take their sea salt, which is a source of selenium and other minerals, rather than going for one mineral itself. So that's my response. I have no issues with taking it, but you need other minerals. That's just one of at least 60 that you need per day.
Okay, thank you. And I also see that you have put your number. So persons who would like to make an appointment to see Dr. Thomas, his number is in the chat. May I ask Dr. Nicholas, his number was at the end of his presentation. So I hope the folks who really want to make an appointment to see him, he placed two numbers there. There's a Jamaican number and there's also a US number. And there we go. So it's on the screen, his office numbers, 267-767-7810 or 876-381-5055. His email is drnickgerm@yahoo.com. So I'm sure you'll find that information very useful. And so, as I said before, we have spent a wonderful evening together, and there was a lots and lots of information that will help us and that will assist us. As the very beginning, we reference Psalm 119, verses 13 to 14. From the King James Version, it says, I will praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And so we understand that indeed our immune system, it's called the body's defense force, the BDF, and each of our cells were screened to prevent problems, and we have quite a number of cells and organs involved. Example are lymph nodes or spleen or bone marrow. The function of our immune system is to identify the threats. Then when these threats are identified, the immune system will mount an attack to these threats, and then the immune system will eliminate the pathogen or the threat. And then the immune system is so very clever because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. It will remember what happened. So if it is that same threat comes into the system, then our immune system will get rid of same. So what is very important and what was said, how can we boost our immune system? By doing several things. And this was a common thread that was throughout all of the presenters. By taking in, so nutrition is very important. So anti-inflammatory foods, repairing our gut health, how we manage stress. So managing stress is very important. And we're told that we're to meditate. That cannot be overemphasized. Meditate. And interestingly, as Dr. Hibbert said, that the word meditate is the same root word as medicine, and it is a thoughtful act to create order. We're to get enough sleep for the night, a minimum of 6 hours. We're to fast, so fasting 72 hours water fast, it allows for a decrease in the inflammatory processes that might be happening in the body. We're to exercise. We're to move the muscles. We're to exercise at least 45 minutes 4 times for the week, or 30 minutes 5 times for the week. And we are to hydrate our bodies. That is very important. That cannot be overemphasized either. After all, we're made up of about 70% or so water, so we need to hydrate ourselves. We can reverse our autoimmune disease. We have about probably more than 100 different types of autoimmune diseases, but these can be reversed if we follow carefully. If we look at our gut, and it begins with the gut. So if we have a healthy gut, then that will go a far way in not only reversing autoimmune diseases, but it also go a very far way in helping us to manage cancer. If we do have cancer, what we should do. And therefore, I would think, and we could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on this evening, but I think that we have gotten enough information for us to reflect on, for us to think about, and for us to chew upon, so that we can maintain a very healthy immune system, and in doing so, it will help us to have a healthy body, healthy system. Yeah, over to you, Dr. Thomas.
Oh, I was hoping you would close us out, but yeah,
I know you had something else to say. I was wondering whether or not you had something else to say, so that's why I did. So I'm allowing you that opportunity. Do you have anything to say?
No, I have nothing to say. Thank everybody for coming out. Thank everybody for showing up and participating. And good night.
Yeah, good night, everyone. God be with you. Take care. Ready.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.